Hey guys, welcome to the Nick Bahe YouTube page. You know what you need to do. You need to subscribe, you need to ring the bell, you need to like the page, you need to leave a comment. I appreciate you. Wine Pod commences at this moment. Bo Ruud's here, Nick Bahe. We have our friends at Onyx Automotive's fantastic wine that they sent us 2 bottles. We might have to get with them and have them send us more because this wine is like, this wine's so good. If you don't even need a car, you should get a car just so you can get a bottle of wine with this.
I think that's not a bad. It's not a bad decision.
I think it's a good combo meal at this point.
This is that reserve.
This is that reserve thing. And shouts out to Go Currency for sponsoring the Wine Pod, by the way, making this whole thing possible. If people that don't know, Bo brought a book. It is my book. I shared it with him. Returning to me. We're our own little book club. Hopefully we'll save a little time at the end of the pod. This is Chuck Klosterman's book, The 90s.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating. I thought it was an incredible read.
It's fun. We're 90s fans.
We're huge 90s
Question
guys.
for you. Are you a quickly remove the book sleeve guy?
Immediately?
You don't keep your book
The sleeve, and then it becomes really challenging because every book kind of looks ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
this almost looks like, for people on YouTube, it's like, it's pink and white. It's like Bubblicious bubblegum, the story of how we became the best bubblegum in the world. Like, it doesn't look like the 90s book. A sleeve on a book is just a lot to manage.
Okay, everybody can admit the sleeve isn't fun.
No,
it's not fun, but the sleeve on the
sucks.
shelf, and when you look at the book, a good cover matters.
See what? Well, why do we have to? Why can't we? It's 2022. Why can't we put the? Why do we need a sleeve?
So I've got a couple. There's these books, a company called Stripe Press, and they do that. Like the book, the material
book cover is
what it has the design, and it's like a thick,
must be way more expensive.
Not bad. Not too.
Well, I'm saying I bet to manufacture, it's got to be way more expensive.
It might be, but it is. I like the books.
Okay, so you keep the sleeve on the book?
Every one.
Wow.
Just because it looks good on the shelf.
It does look really good.
Yeah, and covers. I think people are getting more creative with their covers.
I agree. I am one of those guys that instantaneously
I was just thinking,
removes
I held it
the
up
cover.
and they're gonna go, well, that's a white book.
Okay. Also, are you a bookmark guy or do you fold the page guy?
I never fold the page.
I used to be a fold the page guy, and then when I purchased the Will Smith book at O'Hare Airport, it came with like a good bookmark. So now I've been a bookmark guy.
My wife got me a bookmark of like pictures of her and our daughter on it.
Oh wow!
As I'm sure it costs like $2, but like it was
very thoughtful.
I was like, gosh,
you know what? That's great.
And I got a couple of them, and now I use them in the books. And they're
God, is this the most boring conversation of a? And then I like. And
then I went to the dentist.
Sometimes I like going to happy hour. Do you like happy hour?
We'll get to books.
Okay, we'll get to the books. We'll get to the books at the end. Do you want to? Should we pour it on up before we get started? Usually we cheat.
We cheaters. That's what I mean.
We are on the show cheaters. This is a heavy bottle. It's the only thing they need to slow down on the weight of this bottle. By the way, speaking of weight, did you see the controversy in the fishing world?
I did. That was incredible.
That's amazing.
That was incredible to get caught red-handed on video in real time, and they're dropping the weights like from the gutted fish, and this guy was just standing there, and they're just screaming at him.
So for people that don't know, this is a big fishing controversy. Is it a group of people or is it just one guy?
I think it was a team.
Like a team. Basically, like a team got caught stuffing fish with weights at these competitions.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't realize, I figured it was about a mount of fish. It'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4. He caught 5. He's the winner. I didn't realize that it was.
Like, what do you think goes on?
Let's say me in the fishing world. You've gone fishing with me.
Oh man, we about had to.
You are not you don't like to. Hey, cheers, by the way. Yeah. You do not like. I mean, we went fly fishing.
You were great. You were really into fly fishing that day. So I'm so proud of you for
fly fished.
I think it was just when we were like 12. We went out one time fishing, and you were just so crunk, but you would swing. You'd catch a sunny, and you'd swing it around to me, and you were not going to touch it. So I had to take off all your fish.
Well, so when this would have been. Well, no. How about this? This is even worse. When we were pregnant with Mac, my second little dude. My wife and I went out to Big Sandy Lake, and we had like a weekend out there. Me, her, Mava, my daughter. We go fishing. Somehow, like we had the fishing poles are ready to go. I catch one, and I do what every manly man would do. I swung it to my like 7-month pregnant wife, and she had to take it off the hook.
Well, Nick, you know that woman is unique.
She likes doing stuff like that.
She's unique. Like her day is made if she
acted
can take,
like, oh my God.
Can't believe you make me.
Why would you do that? I love doing this. But no, so I didn't realize that. What I didn't know is there were hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake for these fishing competitions. So I can understand why, because when I first saw the video, everybody was so mad. And I'm like, okay. I thought it was just like you want a ribbon and respect at the old bait and tackle down the street. I thought you got respect from old Bill at bait and tackle.
Bill bait and tackle, you make the wall. You win the tournament.
Like I honestly thought you were winning make the wall.
It was that much money?
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh wow.
And I think he had done this. This is like multiple. He's a multiple offender.
Yeah, you know that this is like that's not the first time. And so people are starting to like in real time, they're realizing they know where they ranked and they're counting the money this person stole from them. They know
I had no idea.
Fake, you know?
I had no idea. But yeah, if people haven't seen it, the video is pretty amazing.
I mean, getting caught red-handed like this. That is red-handed.
I mean, that's unbelievable. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I had no idea that was a thing.
Pissed. I would love to see. I mean, if that were
Bill at old bait and tackle.
I think having it on video is good so everybody can see it, right? And it clarifies what happened. But if this were 10 or 20 years ago, I think that guy just probably gets dragged behind the barn and gets
bait and tackle.
Bill take him down to Bill's bait and tackle, and Bill takes out a baseball bat and beats his legs.
When he beats the fish, what do they got to club the fish that aren't quite dead? Is that a thing?
They would use that club.
They would take the fish club at the Bill at bait and tackle, and Bill would do the honors, whacking them.
Bill would be like, seem like the nicest guy. Like, oh, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, well, he was cheating. He's like, oh, that's really terrible.
Come around back here.
Why don't you come here for a minute? He's like, and he pulls out. He's like, this is gonna sting. You know, like
I had no idea. But
now, how much did those fish weigh?
Tell me now. So you're more impressed if I catch 20 fish that amount to 55 pounds. That's less impressive than 3 fish that weigh 60 pounds. I'm an amount guy.
You're a quantity over quality person, is what you're telling me.
I want to be that guy that, you know, on my wall, it's not like a big old marlin. It's like 50 little sunnies.
50 sunnies. That's would be kind of cool.
How, like real fishing people, would they walk in and just be like, what is this?
Nick Bahe, like, hit 1,000 singles, never a home run, didn't care about it. Like
I mean, come on. Is fishing about
here's what I don't know.
Reeling them in? Is that what it's about? Because your boy's about to cast. You know what I'm saying? I try to cast on that ass.
Nick,
I'm going to cast on that ass.
Is it about reeling them in? No, Nick, it's about get him in the boat. Isn't it about the cast? That's like an all time.
Well, no, I'm saying like I feel like people when they go to Bill's bait and tackle afterwards, they're like, it took me 4 hours to reel in old Molly over here.
Catfish hunter.
Like I didn't know. That's what I mean. Is it about like the battle of getting it in?
It is about getting it in the boat. I think that's all it is. I mean, so think like it's like asking golfers. Like, is it about the backswing or the follow through? It's like hitting the ball.
Okay,
I don't know.
I didn't know. I mean, I'm trying to learn about fishing culture at this point.
And I don't know about.
I like to cast on that ass though.
You like the
I think the fishing world needs me. That's what I think. My casting.
It actually would work way better that you don't know anything about. So you'd ask questions like that, and people would be like, "Whoa,
Bill bait and tackle." They would not appreciate.
Okay, here's what I don't know: is there a limit to the amount you can even weigh? Like, can you bring in 25, or is
no
it like,
idea? I know nothing.
It has to be like 10 or less, and so you want your 10 biggest.
That's a good question. Yeah, like
we
you
don't
get
know
your. I don't know that. I don't know, but
I assume it's like you can up to however many.
Right,
and you got to take your 5 or 10 biggest.
I would think so. I don't even want to say I would think so. I have no idea. I thought it was just about amount. Like you were like, remember when Bubba Gump Shrimp, when they finally like cut the thing and all the shrimp comes into Jenny Forrest's boat? Like I thought it was just like that. Like if you brought in a bunch of little fellers, it was all good.
Because I've watched. I grew up watching enough fishing, which is
Oh
I love watching fishing.
Right.
Up.
Is fishing still on TV?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's channels dedicated to it. But like it used to be like you'd see people like they'd catch a little one and they'd throw it back like in a Bassmasters like that tells me they can only weigh so many.
That's true.
And they want the pigs, you know.
They want the big daddies.
They want the big daddies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so I just don't know what the number is.
I have no idea. But the reason we talked about that is because this wine bottle's like abnormally heavy. I don't know what.
Is that how we talked about?
I thought it was heavy, and that's
you were talking about the weights in the. Oh, that's
what I'm saying. That's why I got to it though. It was just like the weight of the bottle and the weight of the fish. So I did that to justify my tangent. I don't want to just go on a tangent for the sake of a tangent. You gotta justify your tangent.
Yeah.
Speaking of tangents, are we ready to do this? You want to get your headphones on and do this for me? Here. Okay. Let's scoot this up a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so people don't know it's a song. It's a song of the. I mean, we call it the song of the day. It's really the song of the week at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You got a song potentially later for us. This song is by a guy, a gentleman, who I, for a long time, in my mind, would never include them in like my top 5 rappers of all time. For some reason, he just would not be up there until I really critically thought about it. I'm like, this guy is like 1000% in top 5 of all time. I'm going to play this and then I'm going to explain why I am playing it. Okay, so here we go, my friend. Snoop D-O double G, gin and juice. Okay? And the reason I'm playing this, Snoop a few days ago said, quote, "Me and Dr. Dre have been working on an album for the past 2 months and it'll be done in November. It's produced by Dr. Dre. With so much drama in the LBC, it's kind of hard being Snoop D-O double G, but I somehow, some way, keep coming up with funky ass shit like every single day." Okay. It's going to be done in November. It's produced by Dr. Dre. It's the 30th anniversary to Doggy Style. And the name of the album is called Missionary.
No!
Yes!
Whoa!
The name of the album is Missionary.
Wow.
It is Dre. It is Snoop. It is Snoop's album. Dre is producing the whole album. It is in homage to one of the 5 best rap albums of all time, Doggy Style.
My brother brought that home in 94 or 93.
It said it came out in 93.
So I remember my brother brought that home, and it was like...
It's a big deal because the album cover was very racy.
Parental advisory,
right,
and I don't know. My mother let us get it,
yeah.
I'm sure, and I don't know why. But my brother brought that home, and we were like... I mean, 9 and 10.
Right.
And, I mean, it was a big deal to have it.
Huge
It seemed
deal.
like a huge deal.
I do remember going up to your room and you guys had it.
Yeah.
Because at that time, you know, the Chronic came out. So you had Nothing But a G Thing, Dre Day, you had all that. Then that led into Snoop's first album.
And I feel like that's when West Coast rap became
like
to the roof.
Took off. I mean, of course, you had before that, you did have NWA and different things, but like the Dre Snoop explosion from like 92 to 94. Yeah. And then if you lead into Pac when he went to like that 92 to 96 was enormous.
He was like 93, 4 to 96.
And because All Eyes on Me, I thought came out in 1996.
Yeah.
But how about that though? So Dre and Snoop are in the studio together.
But Dre, so the thing I kept hearing about Dre and all those documentaries is he's been working on
Detox. It's called Detox, the album that is like that
he just can't. It's like his creative masterpiece that just is not right,
and
he's not going to release it. Like he's kind of stuck in a way. So I think maybe this is good that he's like letting it go, because Snoop seems like the type he's like, I'm just not worried. Snoop, if people love it or hate it, I'm going to put it out.
Snoop has a lot of albums.
Yeah, where he's like a perfectionist type,
right?
So I think it's going to be good that they're back together working, because I mean, Snoop with Dre is the best. It's a totally different thing. Creature when he's with Dre.
And I think the fact that they're willing to like say this is in homage to Doggy Style, like they must feel pretty good about where it's going. And to call it Missionary is hysterical.
It's great. That's great. But I mean, we'll see if they bring the goods though, because can you find a sound that isn't just trying to repeat what they did, but is something new.
I know. What do you do?
Do you
just go back to? Do you just go back to the well?
I wouldn't mind if they went back to like.
I'm okay with that. Like the same formula of it, and
I guess I like the like they used to sample like a lot of the like the P-Funk, like the it's like a lot of that 70s and 80s soul funk stuff they sample. I actually think that would be kind of sweet.
That'd be fantastic. So
but still making it something new would be hard. But I like the old model of this, like the funk.
sampling.
I love the funk.
70s
I like the
funk.
Yes, of it.
But how exciting is that?
That's great.
Isn't that exciting? I mean, how about that? No, he told it on Stephen A. Smith's podcast. He broke it to Stephen A. And yeah,
that's the worst.
That's the worst. Now, first and foremost, let me just tell you that Doggy Style is one of the most overrated albums I've ever seen in the history of music. But how about that?
Stephen A. can talk without breathing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
A minute or two at a time.
Right.
It
is amazing. He just goes and it's clear. You know, if you really listen to someone, you can hear when they, you can hear it and you can like see it. He just he
doesn't breathe, but he goes.
He goes. So there you go. Think a little gin and juice. Not necessarily my favorite. It's probably the most
expecting.
I know. I was like, I stumbled on that because he said I stumbled on this a couple days ago, and so yeah, I'm excited about that.
I gotta say, this wine is good.
It's real good. Mm-hmm. You want to know what's on the menu tonight?
Show me your wine list.
We're going to talk about Wisconsin firing Paul Chryst. There were some results for a poll question on what's a better job, Wisconsin or Nebraska. Want to get into some of Mark Whipple's comments that he made. Very interesting. Let it whip. We got a Rutgers preview. We got a couple other things. We're going to also talk about Chuck Klosterman's book, The 90s. So that's what's on tap.
I like it.
I want to usually we start with Nebraska, but this story I think affects Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's been a while. In fact, I'm not sure I can even really think of a firing. Now, granted, we get caught in our own bubble in Nebraska, and Nebraska has seemingly led the nation in firing coaches over the course of the last 10, 20 years here. I don't know if I can recall a firing of a coach that I was more genuinely shocked when I saw the news on Sunday. Unfortunately, the news broke right after we finished our recap pod that Wisconsin had fired Paul Chryst. Real quick, let me give you some of his numbers here. So here is his record year by year. Okay. 10-3, 11-3, 13-1, 8-5, 10-4, 4-3. That was the COVID year. 9-4. He won 3 Big Ten West titles and he was 6-1 in bowl games.
And he dominated Nebraska.
And after losing to Washington State at home, getting blasted at Ohio State, and then getting crushed by Illinois at home, Paul Chryst is out. It makes me feel like there has to be maybe more to the story than we're seeing, because this guy, former player at Wisconsin, he's a Madison native. Like, this is, a lot of people have likened this to Frank Solich. Like, this is Wisconsin's equivalent of firing Frank Solich. Although it is interesting that he, reading some stuff, it looked like he had a buyout of $20 million that had gotten reduced now to $11 million. So it's interesting that he was willing to part ways with, almost, basically $10 million. Is
that voluntary?
I think they came to a reduced settlement, a reduced buyout. Why would he? That's why I'm just curious as to what all is involved here.
That's $9 million. Like, what do you mean? Like,
right? Okay, so what was are you as shocked as I was? I was shocked.
I'm shocked. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some salt in the wound that Bielema at Illinois did that to them at home. That was the straw that broke the camel's back in that situation. But it doesn't make sense to me if you look at his record and what he's done there. Like, he's dominated Nebraska, he's dominated the West for the most part.
Yeah.
Wisconsin's been the lead player there. Iowa would be second.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Wisconsin right now is playing with fire. I mean, unless they know something I don't know, which is either.
Yep.
I see two doors. I see Jim Leonard's our star defensive coordinator, and he's gone soon if we don't move him up. or B, like we think Leipold's our guy and we need to get in the running now.
Right.
But either way, you're firing a coach that's won a lot of games and has a winning record. And from experience, which I preach over and over, is you're playing with fire when you fire a coach that's won for you.
Right.
You could end up where Nebraska's end up. I mean, yeah, we don't know what happened with Solich, but let me tell you something. Solich was a winner when he was here. His program was a winner. He won at Ohio.
59-24 record.
Yeah.
Played a national championship game. You know, like I'm totally with you. It is, but it's so, because I definitely think there is something to, well, here, let me read this to you. There was a report from Matt Hayes. He's a college football reporter, and he wrote a story. I'm just going to read this paragraph to you about the Wisconsin firing. It said, then the college landscape began to shift, and 4 Power 5 coaches were fired in the first month of the season. That meant 4 programs who could come after Jim Leonhard, more specifically Nebraska, with its similar ideals and culture. Or a Wisconsin source told me Sunday, quote, we weren't losing Leonhard. So
then that gives you maybe a leaning that it's less Leipold and it's probably more Leonhard.
But why, even if, I mean, so this was the time for the reason. I'm just trying to, like, it's just weird to fire your head coach because you think your defensive coordinator is more, basically they think Jim Leonhard is more important than Paul Chryst.
So there could be a perception, probably rightfully so, that like the best coach on the team is Leonhard. Like he makes that team go. Their defense has been great. I wouldn't doubt that.
I wouldn't either.
Now, the question is, have people already been reaching out to Leonhard? That's a possibility. We don't know. This is speculation. If people have reached out to Leonhard already, maybe Nebraska reached out. Maybe who else?
Arizona State fired Herm Edwards. Georgia Tech fired whoever their coach is. You know, Colorado fired.
Those are all in the Jim Leonhard.
Yes.
You know,
especially Nebraska.
Yeah, especially Nebraska. So I have no idea if Nebraska's reached out. But Wisconsin, if they think he's the future and they've sort of lost the, like, it doesn't work without Paul Chryst type of attitude, then maybe this is their time to go, we've just lost 3 in a row. Let's bring in the guy we want anyway. Like maybe they were hoping this would happen
when you lay it out
3 years.
Yeah, when you lay it out like that, it makes sense. It's just a really odd dynamic to say out loud that your defensive coordinator is more important than your head coach. And in fact, we will fire the head coach in the first month of the season and pay $10 million just to give our defensive coordinator show some, I don't even know what it really show. I'm
unless they feel like their team is that much better because of their defense, that he has seemingly clearly set himself apart from the other coaches and Chryst. Like they think Chryst is a good guy. Probably they've won with him, but they don't feel like he raises the collective.
Yes.
More than
Jim Leonhard does. Well, if you watch them play over the last handful of years, they're winning because of their defense
and run the ball. I mean, that's what they've done.
So
their offense has been always up and down. Their quarterback play has always been very up and down. Good running backs has been a staple, but they play defense.
It's such a fascinating, because this is why we're not just, this isn't a Wisconsin podcast. This is like, this impacts it because now this move is a huge threat to, in all reality, 3 coaching targets that Nebraska probably has their eyes on. Number 1, Lance Leipold. Lance won multiple national championships at Wisconsin Whitewater.
Yeah.
So he's had success in the state.
I think he may have coached in Wisconsin at one point.
That's at Wisconsin Whitewater.
Well, I thought even at
Wisconsin. I'll have to check like his wiki here. But
he was definitely he's from Wisconsin.
Right.
So that to me tells me, like,
so you got a guy that's from Wisconsin, Jefferson, Wisconsin. Yeah, he was a GA at Wisconsin from 91 to 93.
That's a special time for Wisconsin. That's like That's when Barry first kind of took
Right.
over and got things rolling.
And then he was at Wisconsin Whitewater for multiple years from 2007 to 2014. So you got a Wisconsin native that is a GA at Wisconsin that won national championships at Wisconsin Whitewater. That has Kansas 5-0. Game days coming to Lawrence, Kansas this weekend. And I mean, you're talking about a guy that could win National Coach of the Year if he keeps this shit rolling.
See, that's where I'm wondering if it's more that, you know, because
I know that's right. I wonder if it's
to me, it's like those two seem like head and shoulders the biggest reasons. I just don't see it as just like we just want to go take a coaching search. I think it's got to be like they know.
I feel like especially Barry Alvarez isn't the AD right anymore. He retired, obviously, but he's one of those guys. He's sitting in the back room like, you fired Paul Chris. That's fine with me. I don't know why he's a god. This is a bad Godfather.
But you gotta look out for Bopolini. He's coming from Youngstown. You gotta look out for Bopolini.
You fire him, that's okay. I pay for it. It's okay.
Whoever comes to you to make the deal, they're the traitor.
They're the traitor, okay? That's what I'm saying to you.
But Jim Leonard, he's got a bright
He's a
future.
made man. You smack him in the cheek when I talk to him.
You're a good boy, Jim.
Good boy, Jim. You blitz on third down like a good boy, okay?
But the fact that it makes me think that they have either they have a plan. That's a really bad. I don't know what that was.
Godfather. I feel like I couldn't remember any of the lines.
I couldn't either.
Santino's
I just think, it's a lot of this,
Okay,
but,
folks out there, send us a couple Godfather.
That was
lines.
bad.
Other than offer, I can't refuse. I'm going to make him an offer, I can't refuse. $10 million, get the hell out of town.
What was the name of the Barzini? Barzini?
Yes, right?
Yeah, Barzini.
I think that's right.
But whoever was going to come to you to make the deal is the trader, and that was the guy that Abe Fagoda played.
Right. And so that's Barry in a back room making all these because I just have a hard time feeling like Barry. Like it seems like even though he's not around, Barry would have had to sign off on this
Barry
on some level.
Off. He's like T.O. here. Like
they
really, what do you think?
Right. So it makes me think they got a plan. And either they got their guy, either they know it's Leonard, and
I think it's door one, door two,
or the other guy I thought about is Dave Aranda.
Jim Leonard.
That's what I know. That's what doesn't make sense about it.
It's a defensive guy. You got to defend. Like I think,
is there a chance? You know, what would be a scary thing is because Lance Leipold's an offensive guy. If you could keep Jim Leonard around, but I don't know how that really works.
I think if you're Leonard.
Because Leonard,
right?
I think Leonard is either going to be, it seems like now Leonard's either going to be the head coach at Wisconsin next year, or Homeboy is either a head coach somewhere else, or I don't know. I mean,
he's the type to me, though. He I don't know him, but I get the sense like he's a Wisconsin guy. He's probably one of those guys that is he likes where he's at, but here's the problem. What do defensive coordinators make? If you're good, you make $1 million.
Yep.
What do head coaches make?
I mean,
if you're good, you're going to make 5 to 8.
Yeah.
Probably Jim Leonard's
Nebraska's going to pay
8.
Nebraska's going to pay their next head coach $7 or $8 million a year.
So
that's my guess.
You can make $1 million for a couple of years at the mercy of how your head coach does, or they pay you. Let's say Jim Leonard gets $7 or $8 million over 7 years, $50 million. You tell me a human being right now that's a football coach that's like, would you rather make 4?
Right. There is a point where I've always said everybody's
50?
got a price. Everybody's got a price.
4 or 50. Like if the difference between 4 and 8, you might be like, yeah, you know what? I'd rather be a coordinator at $1 million a year than a head coach at 2.
Right.
A coordinator at 1 or a head coach at 8 a year for 7 years guaranteed. Like, I just think it's $50 million.
Yeah, it's
like,
a big difference.
It's hard to turn that down. You got to be like Dave Chappelle. I'm going to Africa.
Yes,
like,
right.
I'm going to Africa.
Yes, that's exactly. That's
I
you're
don't
right.
need to do the Chappelle show.
Right.
I'm done with it. Like,
and
that's like a once in a generation turn down.
Yeah. So this is a big deal because now there's another viable player in the coaching search world that is very similar to you, has ties that are very strong to candidates that you've probably targeted at this point. So this is a significant development here for Nebraska's coaching search, which leads me to, I just thought this was interesting. So Stuart Mandel of The Athletic, college football reporter and writer, he put out a poll question: better job, Wisconsin or Nebraska? And it got over 20,000 votes on his Twitter. 67% voted Wisconsin. Almost 70-30, which is a lot.
Yeah.
I know we are biased, but man, I don't know.
So we're biased, which we are.
Yes.
We are very biased, but that poll is going to have recency bias. So they're going to say, what's the better job? It's like, well, the last 5 years, yeah, Wisconsin. For sure, over the last 5 years.
Right.
You'd say that. But let's go back 40 years, and let's go back 40 years in the future. What's the better job? It's not clear that it's Wisconsin.
Right. I'm not saying it's like a slam dunk Nebraska's way better.
No, it's not. But it's also
it's not 70-30 the other way.
No, because just for this very reason, like we've got the history of the infrastructure. We got a lot of things that are in our favor. The Wisconsin has only recently even scratched the surface.
Right.
Right. Like Nebraska, Wisconsin 20 years ago, it's a joke. It's not even comparable. It's like saying right now, what's a better job, Alabama or Kentucky?
Right.
And you'd be like, what are you talking about? It's not even close. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not even comparable. But let's say Alabama struggles for a decade and Kentucky plays pretty good and then you'd be like, oh, what's a better job? Oh, Kentucky's been winning. Alabama's been in the tank, right? But Alabama historically is a better program.
I think
historically we're better, but over the last 5 years, it's not even close. Wisconsin's.
I just think you look at it. To me, there is no real. Yes, I understand Wisconsin has higher population, all that stuff, but like, I don't know if there's a discernible, massive recruiting advantage that Wisconsin has over Nebraska. I would say it has
a little bit.
Again, I would lean, but we're not talking about a school in Florida compared to Nebraska.
Yeah, they have a recruiting advantage in the sense of like bigger population and closer to more bigger population.
Yeah, 500-mile radius.
They're going to have a little advantage there, but in terms of going and getting like skilled players, we're in the same level. Like,
and then the thing that is, and this maybe depends on how you view this, but I was watching that Wisconsin-Illinois game, and any shot of the stadium, like a lot of the top rows of Camp Randall, Wisconsin versus Illinois. This is Brett Bielema coming to town. Like this, a lot of those top rows were empty.
That's more Nick. That's normal though. Like,
but that's wrong. But
what we do is not normal. We are abnormal.
Well, that's what's when you can because then you contrast it with Nebraska has sucked for 5 straight years. Just fired as head coach, is hosting Indiana, and the place is sold out and rocking. Now, the hard part is like, what does that even mean anymore? Like, it has to matter.
We got fans. We got good fans. That's what it means. That's why I never rule Nebraska out, because we care more. We've got it so built into our DNA that there's no reason we should all still like Nebraska in football if we're all quote unquote bandwagon fans. We're not. And that's the part that is underrated. If we can win here, which they're winning in Kansas, we can win here. But if we ever do, it's just like we still got the thing. It's our whole state.
I was listening to Tom Chattel put it this way. I was listening to him on a podcast, and he said the phrase he used is when it's right. He said, when Nebraska's right, it's still a great job. And that's it. Like when Nebraska's right or when Wisconsin's right, I'll take Nebraska.
That's what we're talking about.
And so again, this isn't two Nebraska homers. Like I don't think it's like, I think it's a discussion. That's why we're having it. But I certainly don't think it's a landslide. I don't think it's a landslide either way.
I totally understand why the polls came out as they do now because
of results over the last handful of years.
And
that's the thing is like, don't confuse who's been the better program, which with what is the better job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those are two different things.
Yes. And like I said, and it's just like, we can't deny how bad we've been. Like we cannot deny that.
Oh, no question.
It matters how bad we've been. But I think we underrate that the things that are built into this Nebraska state, we keep using the word infrastructure on this. That infrastructure is real in Nebraska. And the only way, I mean, if we keep losing, maybe it will disintegrate a little bit. But it's there for the taking if we can finally win.
Tell you what, though, to wrap up the Wisconsin stuff. There's been a lot of comparisons to Frank Solich. There's been a lot of comparisons even to Bo Pelini in terms of firing a coach that is winning. And boy, if I'm a Wisconsin fan,
Careful.
I'm just you better have a plan in place, and always be careful about being happier than happy. And for your football program, always be careful about being gooder than good. And it'll be interesting to see there are certain programs, and I think Nebraska is this, and I think Wisconsin is this, and they're, the parallels to the program because of Alvarez are very real. It'll be interesting to see who they hire. They better not lose the essence of who they are, because that's what happened to Nebraska. It wasn't just that they fired a winning coach. They hired a coach that was not within the fabric or the essence of what Nebraska football was. Like, I look at Wisconsin, like, I think Mike Leach or Lane Kiffin or these guys are good coaches. I don't think those guys work in Madison.
Barry Alvarez, that when we talk about him as the Godfather, we're joking, right?
Yeah.
But Barry Alvarez came from Nebraska.
Yeah.
Okay. And we know people that know him well. And he is adamant and has been adamant about a certain style of play. Play great defense. You run the ball. You can control the clock, and it's play action pass. We don't beat ourselves. Like, they've been doing it since the mid-90s, since Ron Dane, it's the same thing every year.
Right.
And they win. And it's
an interesting moment for them.
And now he's not the athletic director, but we think he's going to bless it. So to me, this is why when I think Leonard plays into what Alvarez would do, because he says, this guy plays defense. We're going to find somebody that runs the ball. So, I don't see them being like, let's hire Mike Leach. And
I don't either. I'm just saying, be careful. You wouldn't have thought that too in 2003 with Nebraska. They're going to hire an NFL guy that wants to run the West Coast offense. What?
That was a gamble by one guy.
Right. I'm just saying,
other plans, and
don't lose the essence of what Wisconsin is.
This is the warning, Wisconsin.
You do
actually
not.
We kind of. I mean, I don't.
Well, yeah, be like, go ahead.
I don't wish them ill will, but
go ahead.
Go for it.
Hire
run and gun guy.
Yeah, hire someone that's going to air
Who's
it
the
out.
guy at Georgia Southern? Go hire that guy.
Yeah, hire. Clay Helton. Hire Clay Helton. That's fine.
Go hire him, and
that'll be fine.
He torched us once. Maybe you could do it again. But guess what? You're not going to be Wisconsin anymore.
It's gonna be fun though. I mean, now we'll see what Jim Leonard can do.
Try playing defense, Jim Leonard, when
when your offense goes 3
snaps.
Right.
90 snaps.
It's a little different.
That's it.
It's a little different. This, I've actually sat on this topic for a while, and this actually is a topic that we should have saved for the off season. But can I throw it at you real quick? We don't want to spend too much time. You want to refill? You want to refill it on up? Well, while you're refilling, let me tell you, give a quick time out to you about Go Currency. Does your business need easy, competitive financing for trucks or equipment? Currency is here to help. Currency specializes in finding the best available rates and terms for construction equipment, farm machinery, trucks, and trailers. In fact, customers can get loans for up to $500,000 with little or no money down in terms of up to 72 months. Currency can also help if you're getting serious about buying a new or used motorhome, fifth wheel, or utility vehicle. It's pretty easy. Just fill out an application. Currency finance team will get to work finding a lender with the most competitive options. It's quick, secure, and free to use. Currency is equipment financing made simple. Visit gocurrency.com for details. GoCurrency.com. Offers may vary and arranged by Express Tech Financing, LLC, DBA, currency pursuant to CFL. License 60DBO-54873. All right. I don't know why I thought of this, but I thought of it today. I've had it written down, but it hit me again. Is there a consensus GOAT, consensus greatest of all time, Nebraska football player?
Not consensus. I think there's a top 3.
Okay.
Because
I said I said in my mind there are era GOATs. There are like decade GOATs. So the 70s, you'd go Johnny.
Yeah.
80s, Rozier. 90s, T. Frage. 2000s, Crouch Sue.
Yeah, but I think to me it's still like you can do that. I think it comes down to three guys. I think it comes down to Rogers, T. Frage, Crouch. And okay, let's go through this because this is where it gets really hard. I think Crouch to me has a special place. And I think he played a lot of snaps. Like I saw that guy maybe play more snaps than any of them. So this is where it's kind of hard. And I feel like my initial gut wants to go with Crouch. But I think if you are talking about GOATs, winning has to be involved in it, right? And T. Frage and Johnny Rogers,
they got two of them things.
Are one in. You basically have to pick between Johnny Rogers and T. Frage. Even though my gut says Crouch, I think he gets eliminated because he never won a title. Where those two, and this is where it's tricky because, okay, we don't win titles without him probably, but maybe one of them we do. And this is hard to say. I don't think we win without Johnny Rogers in the 70s. I don't think so. But T. Frage's teams were so good, I think the one year we could have won without him.
95.
I think even 96, I don't know. But it's hard because like 96 with T. Frage was the most dominant team ever. So I don't want to discount him because we were so dominant because he was a part of that. So it's hard for me to say, but like I think it comes down to T. Frage or Johnny. But it's also like it's hard to say Johnny's better than T. Frage.
See, it's so many things. You talk yourself over all of them in that, like, I don't think there's any doubt that the more indispensable guy for the title teams was Johnny over T. Frage. But what's weird is if you talk to the guys, you talk to any of the dudes in the 90s, and they would smack my face for saying that. Like, man, T. Frage was instrumental in being the personality to lead that group. But here's what's hard for me is like, this is what's hard for me. And this is also can get me maybe like thrown out of the state of Nebraska. If I'm just removing everything else, I can have Tommy Frazier or Eric Crouch. Who do I think is a better quarterback? I will take Eric Crouch.
Oh, that's so hard because those are like the two. I don't know if they're the greatest option quarterbacks to ever play.
Oh, I think they are.
They might be. They might be the two greatest. And I think the only difference is that Frazier gets the one up because he won.
He won.
He's a bad mofo. He won 2 titles. Crouch won none. Crouch won the Heisman. But T. Frage was out for most of that 1 year.
Right.
And Behringer got him there, played a half. T. Frazier came in and we needed him to close it. We needed him to close it.
And T. Frage, we've watched that game again. Obviously, T. Frage was really good. That's the thing. It's like in the biggest moments, T. Frage was really lights out good.
That's where it's not fair to T. Frage to say that he's not, because he closed. Like it's like,
yeah, that's got to matter. Like at some point, it has to matter.
Close. He came in and he was out for a good chunk of that season. He got hurt with the blood clots, but he closed it when we needed him to close it. Right. Which is like he elevated. Right. He elevated the whole team, the run, the spin, he electrified the nation that night. So this is a tough one. I don't know. I just don't know with that one. But I feel bad eliminating Crouch because I feel like it's Crouch, but you get eliminated if you don't win. If we got a guy with 2 national titles, a guy with 2 national titles, like I think we got to go with those 2 and then say, make a coin flip on it or something.
I think there's the answer, and then there's like your individual kind of like, there's the individual element of it.
Yeah.
With the answer is Tommy Frazier,
probably because he's a quarterback and Johnny Rogers was a wingback returner.
And like he was Tommy Frazier, would you say? I mean, he was the face. Again, even though he missed a lot of the 94 year, he feels like if you had to pick the player face of the dynasty, it's probably T. Frage.
But this is where it's hard, because if you're of a certain age, you might have saw Johnny Rogers day in and day out play. He brought us our first 2 titles, which is like, I mean, dude, it started all.
2 titles,
it just
Heisman, 2-time All-American.
It feels so long ago.
Right. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be, and this is maybe because now I'm getting older and you want, like, on some level, you don't want people to forget about you.
Yeah.
You know, like, I do not want to be one of those people that forgets about Bill Russell and John Havlicek and Jerry West and, you know, those kinds of guys, Walt Frazier, Elgin Baylor. Like, you don't want to forget about those guys just because you weren't around to really watch their greatness and it's been so long doesn't mean that what they did isn't real. What Johnny Rogers did, although it seems that, you know, it's in black and white and their helmets they got like one, it looks different. Like,
I mean, Nick, man, woman, and child, the punt return in the game of the century, like one guy in the world could make that play at the time.
Right.
He's that one guy. He was the only guy in the world that could make that play. That play sends us on to win that game in our first national title, right? Like, that's the part where it's hard, because I think were we a better team in 1994 and 5, right? Like, that's the part where, like, I don't want to hurt Frazier's standing because the teams were better around him.
Right. Because
T. Frazier was damn good. So it's Rogers and Frazier. As much as I think Crouch is the best option quarterback ever.
I love Crouch, man.
But he's got Frazier won, and Frazier's body of work. I think if Frazier's healthy the 94 season, we're not having a discussion. I think
you're probably right.
Because if he plays that season out, we beat Miami in the same way we beat him, and then he does the 95.
You could argue it would have been even more. Like, I mean,
think
if T. Frage stays healthy and is rolling,
we're
like
thumping Miami, and we're not like
right. But
so that's where T. Frage gets, I think, downgraded because he missed part of that championship run. And then we held up without him.
And he had a damn good. I mean, Brooke was no joke.
Well, Brooke was a good player, and that's where it's
like, also, you can't punish him because Brooke was a baller.
Yeah, but that's where he kind of is getting punished. Just in the, like, we're talking about the GOAT. We're measuring every little bit. Rogers wins 2 and is the best player, Heisman Trophy winner. Crouch gets punished for not winning. So the same way we punish you and we give you kudos for what we got.
Can I make you the bouncer at Nebraska Goat Club, and you're the bouncer, and I'm just going to throw names at you, and you're either
how many
moving
people
the
can
rope
be in the Goat Club? How many people can?
I'm going to throw. I got about like 10 plus names to throw at you.
We can have 10 goats, so I will throw you out of your night.
Johnny, T. Frage, Crouch, they're in.
I'm opening the rope.
Okay,
go on in. Of course, VIP.
Ndamukong Suh.
Go on in.
Mike Rozier.
Go on in.
Grant Wistrom.
Go in.
Trev Alberts.
With his fantastic work as an athletic director. Trev,
I feel like you're gonna have a hard time not letting everybody in.
Girls with the bottle.
Trev's got girls with him. That's why Trev's got girls. So Trev's brings.
You got 3 girls, 2 guys.
So it's Trev and 3 girls are coming in. Okay.
Trev and Grant. Okay, come on in.
Okay. Jason Peter. He's got 3 of them things. Nobody else has 3 of them things.
Goats. We're talking goats. See, here's the issue. Ndamukong Suh's in the building.
Is Grant Wistrom? Are you letting Trev's in the building? Is Grant Wistrom in the building?
Oh, wait. So if Trev's in,
can Grant Wistrom come in?
Did Wistrom already get in? I think he already got in.
Did I tell you? Did I give you? So Wistrom's in. So is Jason?
I think
you can throw Jason out the club.
I'm not going to throw Jason out the club because
he can't go to VIP. He can't go to the GOAT VIP room at this point.
He's not in the VIP room. He's in the club, but not in the VIP room.
Okay. Remington.
He's got an award named after him. Yes.
Dean Steincooler. In the club, but not in the GOAT section.
In the club, not in the GOAT section.
Turner Gill. If he wins in 84 and 83. All it takes is 1 2-point conversion, 1 catch.
How many quarterback goats?
It's a lot of. We're getting crowded with quarterback goats.
I love Turner. I love him because he's a great human being. But we're talking like goats. You can't have 20 goats.
Okay.
We're gonna have.
You're the goat bouncer at this point.
2 at max per position is what I would say.
Okay. Well, then let's move on. So Turner's in the club, not in the goat club at this point.
Correct.
Lawrence Phillips. Already got Rozier in there. Did I throw Rozier at you?
Rozier's in, not in the GOAT club because I got
another running back right behind him in line, just so you know. So you're checking if you're peeking ahead.
Even though, like, if Lawrence would have played out what his capabilities were, he might be in the VIP.
Remember when LP came in the 93?
Oh my God.
Game
that's a tough one because talent wise, there's some goats that he might be more talented than.
Amon Green.
Shit. This is a tough one.
Are you only allowing, is Mike Rozier in the club? Like, everybody's like, damn, Mike, you're the only running back in the club right now.
Oh, Mike's in the club. I know Mike's in the club.
With a fly ass hat.
Him and the brother Guy. They got it. Mike always has like
Mike stays dressed for the GOAT club.
Mike, somebody said, Mike, you should dress like a pimp sometime. And he's been doing it since 1982.
Oh, man.
But he's a good guy.
So, Amon, if you got to, you know what? To steal, Bill, like if you even have to think about it, they probably shouldn't be in the GOAT club.
Oh, this is tough. This is tough because
you don't got a lot of guys in the GOAT club, but that's how it should be.
You're telling me I'm leaving Amon Green and Lawrence Phillips out?
And Turner Gill. Okay. And Jason Peter.
Here's what I'm going to tell them, okay?
They're pissed.
You know the dude in the suit that's got the headphone? He's like, I got Turner, I got Lawrence, I got Amon. He didn't say no. He said, guys, wait here.
Okay.
So let's
they're figuring some things out.
They're not kicked out.
Okay.
But they're like,
because right now I'm envisioning Jason, LP, Amon, and Turner. They're at the bar like 4 deep trying to get they can't even get a drink. That's what we're treating those guys?
That's how we're treating them right now.
Jeez Louise. Okay. Rich Glover. You throwing him out the club, he'll throw your ass out the earth.
Rich Glover goes with Amon and Lauren.
Okay, all right. Neil Smith. I only got 2 more names, so this is a stressful situation I put you under. Being the GOAT bouncer. That's a position nobody wants.
Oh God.
Nobody likes the bouncer. Let's be honest.
Smith, the issue with Neil is like I feel like I didn't get to watch him play, and I know his pro career
you
well.
Can't necessarily let the pro. This is about what they did in Nebraska.
College,
because Johnny didn't really have a great pro career.
No,
and obviously needed to Croucher Frazier. The GOATs all didn't go on to go do.
We're talking Nebraska guys. I mean, Neil's stallion. I'm gonna say no to Neil Smith right now.
Oh wow, look at you. Okay, I know it's
terrible.
Hard. Last 2, Will Shields.
GOAT.
Will Shields pancake you. Teddy, pin your ass down.
Teddy, pin your ass down needs to go to Will Shields. Pin your ass down camp.
And the last one. Simply because he holds a record. And he's a bad mother. Shut your mouth. Barrett Ruud.
Oh, don't man.
Are you going to throw Barrett Ruud at the club?
Here's the question.
You can throw him at the club?
Here's the real question I ask you. Barrett Ruud or Tom Ruud?
Out of respect, because he is basically my second father, I'm going to go with Tom Ruud out of fear of him making me go outside and pick up pine cones, because he would do that at times.
We had to pull weeds.
If he came home and he didn't love what we were doing, he's like, hey, Pickle, Bo, go outside and pick up all the pine cones.
Why don't you go pull some weeds?
Be like, God dang it, Tom.
Okay, so this is, I can't make this call because I can't throw my brother at the club. I can't throw my father. But that would be the debate with them is my brother, all-time leading tackler at Nebraska. My father, Big 8 athlete of the year, 1974. So not football, like all sports.
Wow, I didn't know that. I don't think I knew that.
Athlete of the year, which is, I don't think anybody knows that because they don't do that.
I didn't even know that was an award.
That's an award. So in 1974, he was the athlete of the year in the Big 8, all sports across like every school. So that right there is like the hidden Tom Ruud. Like he might trump my brother in that sense, but Barrett, I mean, obviously all-time leading tackler. So
I mean, all-time leading tackler is a hard.
It's hard for me to say GOAT to anybody in my family. I just feel like that's not the way the Ruuds do it. So I would say the Ruuds will put the Ruuds on the curb and we'll go home, have a beer.
Who's the great? But seriously though, like
the Ruuds don't belong. In the club. Ruuds don't go to clubs.
Barrett doesn't do anything anymore, so Barrett won't even be at the GOAT club. But I mean, you got it because. Who's the best middle linebacker I mean, you have Levante David, you have Barrett Ruud, you have dudes like Broderick Thomas.
But Broderick was outside linebacker. So, I mean, I'm going through the years. You got Jerry Murtaugh was 1970, right? Yep. He was a great one. Mumford in the 80s. We love Mumford.
I love me some Mumford.
What a great guy. He was an awesome player too. Ed Stewart was really good.
Yes.
Jay Foreman.
I was going to say our boy Jay.
Then Bear and then Levante. I think that's probably clearly your top 5.
I don't know if there's a discernible difference between those guys though.
It's hard. They're all
really good. That's not to denigrate any of them.
I would say Levante's pro career helps. Barrett and Murtaugh had more of a college career.
Right.
So Barrett, Murtaugh, and Mumford too.
And Jay's got titles.
Jay's got titles. Jay's got titles. He played in the pros, but Murtaugh and Barrett got the numbers. They just tackled. They tackled a lot of people.
A lot of human beings got tackled.
Murtaugh won. Murtaugh won in 70 and 71, right? So
it's tough. It's just weird. Like you would think it's I mean, but all I'm saying, there's certain titles like, the home run king, the all-time leading scorer, like football. A big thing about football is tackling. Like, and nobody in the history of Nebraska football has tackled more people than Barrett.
But Barrett's not a club guy anyway. So
I'm not. I wanted to put you on a spot.
As his brother, okay? I'm going to be like, sorry.
I'll tell Barrett. Here's the thing about Barrett.
Full.
Have you ever met a guy that's got less of an ego? Like Barrett would be embarrassed. Like,
yeah, he's not.
If you were like, you the GOAT, he'd be like, stop it.
No, I mean, but
he'd be like, Mike Brown's the GOAT. That was Barrett's guy.
Well, so you didn't mention Mike Brown.
Guy, yeah, I mean,
so think about this. Everybody named
Mike Brown, Ralph Brown.
You had no defensive backs.
Who's the GOAT defensive back? Is it Mike? Is it Ralph?
Mike over Ralph. You got Mike Minter.
Yeah.
You've got Irving Fryer for receivers.
I can't believe I didn't put Irving Fryer.
Probably since he dropped it in the Orange Bowl, he doesn't make the GOAT list.
I'm sorry. That was hard.
He's like Neil Smith. He's a pro guy that was better in the pros. So we're talking about college. I think, but you also, is Wiegert is.
There's a lot, man.
There's a lot of those guys we have to consider on O-line. Broderick Thomas was, not only did you name your dog after him in the late 80s, but he had like a special place in Husker lore. Like he was just one of the Nebraska guys, right? So one of those people that like, I don't know, I feel like a guy like Will Shields gets forgotten, but a guy like Broderick Thomas, like everybody remembers Broderick. Like even Neil Smith is like, we kind of forget Neil Smith. But
by the way, Thomas I was looking at it. Bleacher Report did their greatest Huskers of all time. They put Rozier 1, Frazier 2, Sue 3, Remington 4, Johnny Rogers 5, which I disagree. Then Rich Glover 6, Dean Steinkuhler 7.
If you don't win the Heisman and you got 3 Heisman Trophy winners, like you need to rethink it. You know what I'm saying? Like Sue's the only guy that like is a defensive tackle that I feel like we thought should have won the Heisman.
Yes.
T. Frazier probably should have won the Heisman, but T. Frazier is an auto entry. Like we're basically calling him the GOAT. He's up there, but if you don't win the Heisman or almost win the Heisman, like you don't come before those guys.
Right. I think to end the conversation, I think the answer is Tommy Frazier, because I think there's you talk to some true college football fans and you ask them who's the greatest college football player of all time. There's some people that'll say Tommy Frazier is the greatest college football player.
And I think if you think of Nebraska, who like
the first name you think of is Tommy Frazier.
If you're not a Nebraska nut, the first name you think of is Tommy Frazier over Crouch.
Yes.
Over Johnny Rogers.
Yes.
Maybe Johnny if you're born before
Of a certain age.
If you're born before 1960, you might say Johnny, but anybody born after 1960 will say Tommy.
Yeah. How did you like me? I'd hate to be a bouncer.
I mean, that was hard. I feel bad.
I feel bad
Nick,
that I put you on a spot with that.
I told Amon Green, Turner Gill,
Lawrence Phillips,
and
Jason Peter.
And Peter.
To just
did I let Peter? No, I'm going to let Peter in. Here's why I'm going to let Peter in. Here's why. Because I think he's going to wreak havoc if I don't.
There are certain guys you got to pro-con it.
Just let Peter in. Just give him a drink. Give him one drink.
Christian's there in the back, and Christian's like, you didn't get in? And it's on.
Yeah, it's on. So let's let those guys have a drink. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Nick. You know what? I'm gonna let them all in.
I know.
I love them all. They're all my.
It's cool that like you got. I mean, you get to like 20 names, and it's like it's not laughable to throw them out there. No. You know what I mean?
And
like
my favorite thing is though, I definitely didn't let my own family in.
But that shows. That you're a good bouncer. You're not just doing favors like you're doing.
Look, I know you raised me. I know you did, but we're full.
Right.
That's what I tell my dad.
You know who's the GOAT coordinator right now? Mark Whipple. You want to hear what Whip had to say today? Because we got so Mark Whipple. We're taping this on a Tuesday. Mark Whipple met with the media, and he had a very, very interesting answer to a question. And before I play this, because I think it's important, I had to go back and rewatch the whole press conference to be like, okay, what was the question he got asked? The question Mark Whipple was asked today, from the best I could hear and understand the question, is, does it seem like sometimes your expectation level is higher than theirs being the players? This is what Mark Whipple had to say to the media in answering that question.
I don't know if they really think we can win every game. I don't, you know, so we're good enough, I think. Okay. I'm not a genius, but we can win 7 games. We can win these games. All right. We already threw away 3 of them. I mean, Oklahoma kicked our rear, but I said, you know, that's the expectation is like, hey, not just to go to a bowl game. We can win the West. That's what it is. So you're in first place. Act like it and play like it. You know, so that's again takes time, but you know, hey, I'm a realist. If we don't get there, I'm not going to be here anyways. So I told them that. And we win the West, you know, I'll ride Mickey's coattails. But it comes down to those guys playing, and I think they've taken that to heart, and we practiced well these 2 days. So that's, I said, I told them I won't ever BS them, and I like these guys. I said it, and I told them all, I like you. Otherwise, I wouldn't play you.
Okay, that's Whip.
What a
you said it, that answer was telling. Do you want to? We got a lot to unpack. Do you want to give your first like?
I'm very surprised that he went that honest. Like,
oh yeah,
he says if we don't win, I'm not going to be here. He says, I don't know that they believe they can win.
Yeah,
I think he's talking about his offense, maybe as much as anything. Like, is that what he talking about, his offense or the team?
Because I think the to unpack some of this stuff, like, you know, he said, I don't really know if they really think we can win every game. Like, if that's the mindset, that's got to change.
Yeah.
And I don't know who, and that's what's hard is when you're talking about a football team, there's so many different guys. I don't know who, and there's 2 sides of the ball. I'm not sure who he's really talking about there, but I also don't think he's the kind of guy that just throws something like that out there lightly. I mean, that's quite a statement. I don't know if they really think we can win every game. And so that mindset has to change if that's true. But I liked everything overall. His honesty was refreshing, but I like what he's saying in that, he went on to say that, that's the expectation, not to just go to a bowl game. We can win the West. You're in first place, act like it and play like it.
But see, I think that's very telling about the state of, as much as we say these players can shake it off and it's a new season, like they've lost a lot of games for many years now. And it's harder to shake that, whatever that thing is that sticks to you when you lose. And you lose close games over and over and over. It's like human psychology. You just somewhat seep in that, like, this is what happens to us. And I think what he's saying to me is, even though we won, he's still going, he's not seeing the, like, they thought that was supposed to happen. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I think winning will help this. The more they win, the more they're going to believe they can win. But they've lost so much, they almost believe they're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear from that statement, which just shows, like, you got to win so you can keep believing that that's what you should expect. You should expect to win.
Well, and it's not only what has happened, it's also how they've been, in a roundabout way, treated, in that when your head coach gets fired and your defensive coordinator gets fired, I don't know how that wouldn't kind of mess with your psyche a little bit.
Yeah.
Where it's like, man, we're so bad. We're getting dudes are losing their job. And you hear the stuff like, man, they think so little about this team in this season. They're willing to, like, and I'm not saying, like, I actually think Trev, and now that, hindsight being 2020, I think, like, his decision gave this season a chance to have success. But I think you could view it as, like, man, they think so little of us, they're willing to just scrap the season now and fire the coaches, like, so there are things working against the confidence thing, but I'm totally with you. Like, I think it's clear that, and this is an outsider that wasn't a part of all the losing, that comes in and says, listen, I don't know if they really think we can win every game. I'm not sure these guys think like that.
No, I mean, right now they're trying to figure out how to be a team that can win a game.
Right.
Not, we're going to win the West. They're not even thinking like that. Now, what Whip's point is like, you're number one in the Big Ten West right now. Like, I know you don't believe it because it's been crazy around here. It's been drama around here, but just look where we stand. It's a new season. We're in first place, quote, quote, tied, even though, but we are. And
it's not a lie.
Our freaking schedule is easy right now. We have Rutgers, Purdue, Illinois, the next 3 games. Okay. The last part of it's hard, but we have 3 games that very winnable games.
But even in trying to play devil's advocate about the final games, you have a Wisconsin team that is struggling, and who knows? Now all of a sudden they got 39-year-old Jim Leonard, who's never been a head coach. Like, you don't know what kind of Wisconsin team's coming to town. Yeah. I have a lot of respect for Iowa football. I do, and I know that's blasphemous to say, as being a Nebraskan, but, like,
they can't score.
Okay, like, they can't score.
That plays into our hands,
right? So, like, I'm saying, they can't score. So, for as much as I think going to Kinnick and winning and going to Iowa City and winning is really hard, I'm just saying it's not like they can't score.
They can't score. Wisconsin's in a rut. Michigan's good.
Michigan's really good. And Minnesota, all of a sudden,
Minnesota just got beat.
Whoa! All of a sudden, Purdue came to Minneapolis and beat them, and you go, well, what's going on here? Yeah. So everybody's vulnerable in one way or another. And I think Whip, you can see him trying to speak it. It goes back to what I said on Sunday. It's the Henry Ford line. If you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Yeah. And it's the tale that they tell themselves matters in confidence right now. I'm sure Whip is trying to, like, get those guys to believe, because you got to believe it. Now, I'm not saying, I'm Mr. Championship winner Bahe here, but, like, the idea, like, I don't ever remember a game. I don't remember ever taking the field or taking the court and thinking, like, we're not going to win this game.
No,
Or
never.
like, it's so a part of me is like, wow, I can't believe there'd be even a thought like you're not going to win. I would think, well, we're going to win every game.
No,
Why wouldn't we win every game?
I mean, I'm trying to think of the best teams we played.
Like when you played USC comes down college game day.
Oh, we thought we were going to win.
Right.
We knew, like, we didn't discount how good they were.
Yeah, like that's not to say you don't respect your opponent.
You go, man, these guys are good, but here's what we got to do to win. And you're thinking about how you're going to win the game.
Yeah. And so
it's not thinking about, man, we don't even got a chance. It's more like, oh, these guys are actually good.
Right.
But like, here's what we got to do to win.
Right. Right. So,
and I don't know that that's the mindset where with a lot of these guys, just because they've never experienced consistent winning.
I don't know. I just thought Whip's whole answer was, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I also loved his final thing. He said, quote, I'm a realist. If we don't get there, I'm not going to be here anyways. We win the West, I'll ride Mickey's coattails.
Well, so
that's also,
he goes,
like,
he said, we win 7 already, like, so that's where it makes me curious of Mickey's, like, we were kind of Trev stuff last week. Yeah. But like, does Mickey need to win more games than we realized for him to keep the job? Like, does he got to win?
Does he got to win out, which is absurd.
He like, let's say he wins everything but Michigan. I think he keeps the job.
Oh, fuck yeah.
But if he wins, we have 7 games left.
Mm-hmm.
If he wins 3 and loses 4, I don't think this tells me I don't think he's getting it with that. If he wins 4 and loses 3,
depends on the 4,
2,
but 5 and 2, yeah, I think 5 and 2. I think 5 and above, he's the guy.
4 and 3 though.
4 and 3, man,
because that's 7. No, it's 6 wins.
If he wins 4 games, he goes to a bowl. If he goes 4 and 3 in these final 7 games, that means he beat one of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, or Michigan. He beat one of those teams.
Purdue, Illinois. Yeah. So if he wins 4,
I think he's staying.
I think he's got a really good
I think he's got a really good shot, I should say.
I think he's got a really good shot because that's 6 wins and it's under tough circumstances. But I also think he's got to win the next 3 to even have a shot at winning 1 or 2 more.
Right.
So here's the problem.
Well, yes.
Because think about this. If you're Trev, you can't let him lose 3 and win the last 4, because if he loses the next 3, you're already trying to hire somebody else.
Well, I even think Trev, that's what's so weird. I wonder what it's like. Trev's world is like right now. Like you're probably rooting for Mickey. You probably on some level want it to be Mickey, but you also can't get emotional about it. And you, in the meantime, have to do a search. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
So it's like, you got to go out there and do your job in trying to figure out who the next head coach is going to be while supporting Mickey and rooting for Mickey. It's a weird situation.
And I guess if you're going to hire somebody away from another school,
you got to wait anyways. That's not going to
be announced till the
December,
the end of November. So I guess that's to make Mickey's benefit, unless it's somebody that's not currently in college football.
Right.
Then it could happen earlier, but if it doesn't, then it's.
Well, let's get into then. A lot of this starts with this Friday. I was looking up, so let's do our kind of Rutgers preview prediction here.
Tipsy predictions?
Yes, tipsy predictions here. The headline on NJ.com, which is like a New Jersey website here.
Yeah.
This is the headline of the story. Nebraska is a must-win for Rutgers to keep arrow pointing up under Greg Schiano. Just to give a sense of like the other side. Like there's this feeling from apparently Rutgers people like they better get her rolling, or they better win this game, better kick Nebraska while they're down if you want to try to keep any forward momentum.
Yeah.
Interesting. When you look at Rutgers, they've had massive offensive issues against FBS opponents. So excluding, they scored 66 on Wagner. But against Boston College, they won 22-21. Top me off here, brother, from another. Ooh, oh, you're getting unselfish? Look at you. Okay, I appreciate that. So Boston College, they scored 22 points. They won 22-21. Temple, they scored 16 points, won 16-14. Iowa, they got beat 27-10, only scored 10 points. And Ohio State only scored 10 points, 49-10. So offensive output, 22, 16, 10, 10, 14 points per game. They're averaging 268 total yards per game. So offensively, they have not been very good. Their quarterback situation is a little shaky. Noah Vegel's been banged up. He took his first snap of the season against Ohio State. Gavin Wimsatt didn't suit up against Ohio State. Their third stringer, Evan Simon, has thrown the most passes this season. Mm-hmm. My thing for you, I got two questions for you with this game. Excluding the opponent, give me a sense, did you ever play a Friday game or a Thursday game? A short prep. Shorter prep, I should say. It probably helps that they just came off of a bye week. You know, it's not like they've played 5 straight weeks and now they got a Friday game. Short prep, the fact that it's a Friday game, big deal, not a big deal. I'm going to start there.
I think what's hard is it's probably benefits Rutgers just because like they've been trying to like install a new defense, you know, like that's the part that probably helps Rutgers. One less day for Nebraska to prepare,
right?
With new, you know, like time helps Nebraska. Lack of time hurts him.
What about, and I think this is a big factor, this is Nebraska's first true road game. And you're doing it with a first-time head coach, too.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal. I think the first time you go on the road, it's just different. It's just different.
It's harder, but I mean, I think I don't know. I mean,
I just feel like this has a recipe, and this is why, like, I just go back to, I don't want to deviate too much from what I thought at the preseason, even though I've seen now what we thought heading in and what we've seen. I just feel like this game has a recipe for a loss. Short week, first road game, all these changes. I just think the recipe is there for them to go to New Jersey and just come out a little flat, struggle a little bit. Shiano's teams are pretty tough. I don't feel good. Nebraska's favored right now. They're favored by 3. I don't feel good about Nebraska.
So here's my worry is, I mean, the offense, I kind of never know exactly what we're going to get out of the offense, but seemingly we have, like, we come out hot, we go cold, we find another point to rally. We've never put it together for a whole game, but I kind of know what we got. I think we got some talent and some players, and the line's up and down. But the defense right now is where I'm. If they play well, we win easy, is what I'd say.
And this is a game that suits. I mean, this is an offense, like I just said. It's an offense that has struggled.
Seemingly, this game is set for us. I am skeptical right now that our defense. I'm just a little skeptical. You know, like, things worked out. We came out with something different. Now we have to do it again, right? They had a week to look at our reformed defense. So I'm very hesitant that I think we can easily come out and have a great game. Now, if we do, I think we win easy. I think our defense.
Yeah, I think Rutgers is flawed, and
I think Rutgers is ripe to be beat. But man, like, we are trying to do a new defense in the middle of the season. It's hard to do that. I mean, like I said, our secondary issues have been real. And if we don't get those corrected, and a coach sees a weakness, it can be a long night.
I'm not ready to completely say Nebraska has cured themselves of all that had ailed them.
No.
So even though, and like, again, this is an Indiana team that didn't have their top 2 wide receivers, and it was tied going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I'm not I certainly don't think the world of Rutgers. I want to see. They got to go. Nebraska got to go prove it to me again before I can pick them. So to be honest, if I hate doing this, like if I had gun to my head, I got to pick it. I'm taking Rutgers in a close one, probably like 24-21.
I would probably say I would say it's.
You're gonna take Nebraska in a close.
Like gut is Nebraska wins, but I don't feel great about it. I really don't.
Yes.
I don't feel good, and I mean I think the offense. It's more about the defense. If the defense plays well, we win, even if the offense isn't great. Like if the offense is great and the defense is bad, we still lose, I think.
That's what I think. It'll be interesting. This is a fascinating game.
Yeah.
Another game, and we do this every, like, this is now the biggest game. This is the biggest game. But like I said last on the recap pod, like any roadmap to making this season interesting and Mickey having a chance at keeping the job, they had to beat Indiana. And a lot of the stuff you could probably apply to even this game as well. These are probably their two easiest games they're going to play for the rest of the season.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, this game is a must for Mickey because I think if he wins this, he buys himself one loss.
Mm-hmm.
So he can win this and lose the next game, and the fans are still being it.
If they split the next two road games.
Yeah, the problem is if we lose this, I think that the one win keeps a good chunk of the fans in it. But a loss, you sort of start feeling that apathy. Some of the players start doubting again.
Yes.
They need a couple we still haven't had our 3 wins in a row since Frost got here.
Which is
Nick,
wild.
Think about it.
Yeah,
That's why I wanted to win 3 in a row, because the players and the fans have not felt 3 wins in a row. That's my number. 2 would be nice. If you get 3, it changes our attitudes completely.
So I'm going to take Rutgers in a close one. I hate doing it. I am in, like,
I should do it.
You
but
you gotta prove it to me again. I'm sorry. You got to prove it to me again that you're there. This is still the same team. There's still the same players. We're out there against Georgia Southern and Northwestern and North Dakota and Oklahoma. They go win this game, things will get interesting. But I'm gonna take Rutgers in a close one. But it's first road game, short week, all these changes. We're at a wedding on Friday, so we're gonna have to DVR it and watch it on Saturday.
Yeah, I still don't know how that's gonna work.
I don't know how we're gonna do it either. Okay, you want to talk some Klosterman as we say goodbye?
Let's do it. Can you get your phone ready for me?
Yes. Okay. Well, look at you. I didn't even realize you wanted to. Okay, I got the Apple Music up for you. Okay. Pull this up. Okay, so for people that don't know, Chuck Klosterman, one of a great author, highly recommend a lot of his books. He wrote a book called The 90s, a look back at a very, very interesting decade on a variety of levels, and he covers a bunch of different stuff. So I bought this book. I read it. I gave it to you, Bo. You read it, and you want to start this conversation with a song. I think I know what song you're probably going to do, but
I don't think you do.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to do the.
It
okay.
applies to the book.
Okay.
But I know what you're thinking.
And you've zigged and zagged me here. You've juked me. You've zagged me.
Yep. So I'm going to just do it, and we're going to go from there.
Blame it all on my roots. I showed up in boots and ruined your black tie fair.
Oh, that's the wrong guy.
Who is this?
The last one to show. I was the last one you thought you'd see there. And I saw the surprise, the fear in his eyes.
Oh, okay.
Is this it? Is this what you wanted?
Champagne. And I toasted you, said, honey, we may be through, but you'll never hear me complain.
I got friends in low. Okay.
Oh, it started, yes. Because he talked about
but
a lot.
They don't have Garth on Apple Music, so this is the only song for this one.
Because this doesn't sound okay.
This
so in my
Garth.
defense, I didn't.
This isn't Garth Brooks.
Okay.
So it was supposed to be Garth, but it says I am Garth Brooks, but it's not.
I am
Garth
Batman.
Brooks.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Racist,
They did. They talked a lot about.
So the point why I thought it was a good lead-in is because in the book, it goes down so many rabbit holes with music.
Yes.
But it kind of reminded me with the point of You forget Garth Brooks was probably the #1 artist of the 90s. So
Yeah.
they talk about Smells Like Teen Spirit. They talk about Tupac. They talk about West Coast rap. They talk about grunge so much. But in the end, when it comes to album sales and concerts,
Right.
Garth Brooks was #1 in the 90s.
Right.
So I totally forget
I
that he
would
exists.
right.
You know, like I don't think about Garth Brooks, but like I just thought this would be fun to play a little Garth. But
Yes.
this isn't Garth.
But it still works. Your point still remains the same. Your point still
remains the same.
lands.
Yes. But
no,
that-
you're right. I thought you were going to do Smells Like Teen Spirit.
I was going to, but I knew
That's
you'd
what I
know.
thought you were going to do.
But so this was supposed to be Garth. It's better when it's Garth.
Uh,
But Friends in Low Places is kind of Garth's, like, it's my favorite Garth
Right.
song. But
right.
I just found it, like, when you think back to the 90s, like, Klosterman makes good points about how Garth kind of represents this, like, moment in time where Garth didn't have to be something that, like, divided. He was just sort of like, everybody's fine with Garth.
Right.
You know, and a lot of people disliked grunge. A lot of people disliked hip hop.
West Coast rap. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like everybody was kind of like, oh, Garth's fine. Like that was a moment in the 90s where everybody sort of was okay liking the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because did they have anything on an Achy Breaky Heart in there too?
That was my other.
Okay, 'cause
the
that
one
was
I was
the other-
thinking about playing.
Yes.
So Achy
Because that
Break-
was the other big thing.
yeah.
Because that was a huge hit in the 90s.
And it was like, and I think Klosterman talked about how could that be a hit? But he basically said like during the moment everybody was like, well, yeah, we're
they-
just
okay.
fine with it.
Right.
You know? So, but anyway, yeah. So,
That's good. I like it.
yeah.
I like it. I mean, there's so many different, I don't know where you want to take the conversation because there's obviously, I mean, when you recap a whole book, there's a lot of different things you could go with.
Yeah.
I thought one of the early on in the book, it talked about something that I remember dealing with. Now, what's hard is like in the 90s we were teenagers, you know, like we were, you know, we weren't adults yet. So your perspective on things is different. But at the same time, there are certain things in this book that really touch you because it sometimes you really live those moments. Like they talked about early in the book, one of the general thoughts he talked about was like in pop culture, whether it was music or just in general, was remember the term sellout.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Yeah.
Was a big, and I remember like the worst thing, arguably there were two things that you could be labeled as that was like
Yes.
a scarlet letter in the 90s. The first one was a sellout.
Yes.
And then in conjunction with that was the worst thing you could be is someone who cares.
You can't care.
can't
like it's
care.
not cool to care.
Right.
The worst thing in the world is you sold out, man. Kurt Cobain, I don't want to be famous. I don't want to sell out. I hate that I'm famous. Type that like
Yes.
that attitude. So actually it's funny you said that, dude. I marked this.
Because that was like one of my main, because I just remember being in middle school and at Irving Middle School, and you're really caught up in that, right? You're trying to like, you know, I mean, I think in some ways, like ages 12 to 16 are like really hard years.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really hard. And I remember at that time, of course you care, but we in that moment, caring was the worst thing you could do.
But that's
So I remember
think
that
that's-
internal struggle a lot.
I think that's like there's always that, you know, rebellion moment of teenagers across all generations.
Yes.
But unique to the 90s, it was caring sucked. Caring meant you're lame. I don't think that applies to kids nowadays.
I don't
think
either.
Now it's cool to care. And that's the part that I think Klosterman hit on the head. So this, I marked, it's funny you said that. I marked this just for this talk, but he was talking about kids, you know, ages 18 to 29. When asked about like, what's the worst thing about America? Like today they would say capitalism. Capitalism is the problem with America. He said the same thing. If you look at the 90s, when a semi-educated young person asked to identify the root cause of the most American problems, it would not have been capitalism. It would have been more like commercialism.
Yeah.
Like you're commercial, you're a sellout. That's what it was. And I don't know what it was about that period, but it caught it caught a moment in time where selling out was the worst thing. So I started thinking about, like, okay, why were we so obsessed with selling out? And why today, like, if you look at NIL and stuff, that is selling out.
That is literally
and
selling
it's
out.
the coolest thing you can do right now.
You can hawk any project. Like a lot of Instagram people are famous for selling out to whoever wants to, like,
absolute sellouts. I mean, you are like the term brand. You are a brand.
Yeah.
Think about saying that in 1995.
You it'd be the worst thing in the world.
Sellout, poser was the word. You're a poser. You're a phony. And I still feel some of that in my adult life. I hang on to that.
That's that 90s sellout
thing. When you become an adult, though, and you kind of go, man, I kind of got to sell out a little bit here. Like,
well,
you go work for a corporation, you're kind of selling out.
But yeah, you're right.
I mean, like it's
look at what we're doing. You know, I mean, like
it's Wayne and Garth, like wearing, you know, the Reebok gear, and it's like,
right,
man,
it's the worst thing you could do.
Selling out. Like, yes,
but I know it's because even you hear kids talk now about like their brand. That's a good point.
Brand.
Like their brand is the very definition of selling out. And for people that didn't grow up in the 90s or weren't alive in the 90s, they don't understand how much that was like the worst thing. Well, you're a sellout to care, all that stuff, to care about money.
To care about
money, your appearance.
Or like if in music, like if you were a musician, if you did a record that seemed like it was too clean, or it was too, or if you were playing around the censors, or, you know, you toned it down because the networks ask you to, or what, you name it.
Right.
Like you lost your credibility or something.
Right.
And I don't think that's even a thing now.
Yeah.
It doesn't even exist.
It's funny that I guess that's amazing. If that was I literally marked my most really like popped in my head reading it was like, yes. Because being a teenager during that time was hard. Because again, like I said, of course you care. You want to impress girls. You want to be cool. It was this weird, like you wanted to be cool, but you can't want to be cool because that's not cool.
No, wanting to be cool.
So how the fuck do you be cool? Welcome to our lives.
You do your thing, and it's just badass.
You just
by
do
itself.
whatever you got it. You know, that's
I don't
what it
play
is.
by your rules, Miss Teacher.
Yes.
Hey, Miss Teacher, trying to education. I think we fell into this trap too. Education's not cool,
right?
Like,
right.
Educating yourself.
Getting good grades. It was almost embarrassing if you were around people and you told someone like, "Hey, what'd you get on that test?" If you said I got a 98, it would be like, "What a dork."
Yeah, there was learning was stupid. Like
learning was stupid.
Was not
caring
cool.
About your grades was stupid.
Yeah, caring was lame.
Just that would the thing I wrote down was worst thing could be to care.
to care. It's our weird.
Which is an amazing sentence to say. But if you in the 90s, there was a period of time where that was the case.
And you know what's? I think I'd be interested to see if, like, you know, because we have people listening to this are awesome, and they always share. I go sometimes on YouTube and I'll like look at what they say, because it's like it's fun to listen. They got great little insights, but it'd be funny to see if people kind of felt this, where if you came from the 90s and that was your coming of the age, caring was not cool, and then at some point in your life you had to make the decision, I got to care about stuff. Yeah, and it was kind of hard to go from visibly being like, I can't show I care about anything, to being like, I really like this. I am being enthusiastic and supporting this outwardly. I'm caring about this, and I don't have to worry about if it's cool or not. There's a moment you have to get to do that. But I think for our generation, it was a struggle.
It was a big struggle.
It's a struggle. Like you had to get 10, 20 years past that to like,
just be like, okay, I'm going to embrace it. Listen, I care.
Like doing these things that I care about, and I can, you know, like, versus being like, it's not cool to care.
Yeah. But that was one of my first things, one of my big prevailing takeaways early on in the book. You know, there was a million different things. You know, they talk about Jordan playing baseball, the steroid era in baseball. They talked a lot about the O.J. Simpson trial. Yeah. In some ways, the O.J. Bronco chase is arguably the most iconic moment of the 90s. By the way, Klosterman, and it was a perfect way. The way his final chapter of the book is like perfect. Like it is the most perfectly well written like way to wrap. Basically, the 90s. His bookend of the 90s ends on 9/11.
The night when the Twin Towers fall, the 90s. I think the chapter is called "The Decade to End Decades," and that's how it ends in September 11th, 2000.
Even though it's in the 2000s, but like it's a good way to bookmark the end of it.
Because the start of it wasn't 1990. It was like I think it started with Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yes.
Like it was marked.
So that'd have been like 92,
91. So there was a bunch of albums. It was like, I think he had Red Hot Chili Peppers, Tribe Called Quest, and Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Or Nevermind is the album. They all came out in the same week in, I think, October of 91. He said like the start of the 90s, how we know it, was there. It ends in September. So it's like, it's not like January 1st, 1990.
Right.
It's
October
and it ends September. It is
an interesting concept in and of itself of like a decade isn't necessarily a period of a starting date. It's a thing. It's a whole entire culture, movement, way of life that doesn't necessarily begin on January 1st, 1990 and end on December 31st, 1999. But because I do feel like there was Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit. From there to 9/11, that's the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that have obviously happened before that, but that is, and he talks a lot about how it was and how we remember it. And I loved actually how he talks about how people nowadays can't understand. Like he talks about Bill Clinton. He says Bill Clinton had an affair with an intern in the Oval Office, lied about it. His approval rating went up.
Right.
He says people now can't understand that. And he says at the time, though, you have to understand with the way the world was and the way we thought, it made sense.
Right.
And we can't, like young people now wouldn't be able to understand that. We lived through it and we all remember like, oh yeah, it kind of did at the time.
Right.
Now it doesn't make sense. But that's the part that Klosterman dives into. Like just how we see things in retrospect versus in the moment. And that's something human beings have a hard time dealing with. How we think about things years and years, 20 years later.
He tried it. One of the things I've listened to him, I listened to a lot of his stuff on his book tour before reading the book, which was actually helpful. He talked about, and I don't know if he referenced this in the book, how he actively tried to steer away from nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, nostalgia is like, in some ways, only remembering the good things. Like he tried to really go back to the 90s and just take things for what they were.
Yeah.
And so you're referencing stories, articles, different things like in the moment, how people felt about, various things. And it's a fascinating book.
And it's fun. I mean, me and you, like, we talk about the 90s a lot, but like it is our seminal decade.
Yeah.
The 2000s happened, but like I think about the 90s more than the 2000s. 90s
seemed like
I don't know why.
I know it seemed like a more impactful decade culturally for some reason. And again, maybe it's just because like when you're coming of age, things resonate with you more. I don't know, but
yeah, that's a tough one.
I did think this isn't in the book, but I listened to Klosterman talk to Colin Cowherd, and Cowherd asked Klosterman, what was your favorite part of the 90s, your favorite aspect of the 90s, having read the book, lived through it, all that stuff. And his answer was really, really, really good. And I think it hits to a lot of how I feel. And I'm going to preface before I kind of paraphrase what he said with like, again, this isn't the right thing to say. But what Klosterman said, and I think I echo it, is he said there was just less social pressure to be involved with society, that there wasn't pressure to engage in the social discourse. If you wanted to, you could, but if you didn't want to, you didn't have to. That it was completely fine and normal and acceptable to have thoughts and kind of keep them to yourself. And he referenced that went for celebrities too, that there wasn't this expectation for Michael Jordan. Now, he got backlash for not backing a certain Democratic North Carolina candidate.
That was almost 20 years later.
20 years later afterwards.
Yeah.
Or he goes, there wouldn't have been an expectation for Leonardo DiCaprio after Titanic to give his take on the social discourse of the world. In fact, it would have been seen as weird to ask him.
Yeah.
And his line was, the stakes felt low, where the idea of just being a person going through life with your own problems and thoughts was completely acceptable. And how, again, he says, and I get it, like, I get that view can be viewed as troubling and viewed as selfish. But I think to a certain extent, I think for people that, like, one of the things that was telling to kind of land the plane was everything about the 2000 election.
Yeah.
On how you think about our political climate. And I actively avoid talking politics on my podcast, all this stuff. That's not to say that you and I don't talk politics, and that's not to say that I don't have thoughts on politics. I absolutely do. Yeah. But it was so interesting to go back and read in the book for the 2000 election. It was Gore, Bush, and the general feeling heading into it was, who cares?
They're the same. Who cares?
Our country won't be any different.
Who cares? Think about how far that is off.
So we are 22 years later. Can you think of less of an applicable way to describe a political climate than who cares? They're both the same.
Democrat, Republican. What's the difference?
What's the difference?
What's the difference? Was the consensus?
What's the difference?
Oh my! Isn't that nuts to say?
Reading that is crazy.
But I think that's probably what I liked about the book the most, is he made that point that the 90s was the culmination of, like, I think we were very prosperous. It was, for the most part, there was no major financial issues. There had been no major conflicts. I mean, the Iraq war in the early 90s was quick.
Yeah.
But Desert Storm. But for the most part, we'd had no major conflicts since Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And a generation grew up with just, like, everything was good. And they fell in this weird attitude of, we don't care. But, like, really, it was so good and low stakes that you could just, like, enjoy popular culture
for what it was,
and not have to be involved in politics. And it was just almost like a simpler, lower stakes time.
I love that. Like, I quoted, he said the stakes felt low.
The stakes felt low. And I think anybody that grew up in the 90s knew that, like, it didn't feel quite so intense. Yeah, there were pockets and things.
Oh, yeah.
But for the majority, and I would say we fall in the majority of, like, middle America, it was pretty, like, you didn't have to worry about the intensity of the noise like we do now.
Right. And then that gets, you know, I mean, obviously you have now with the 24-hour news cycle changes that, because he talked about, like, he references at the end newspapers before 9/11, and just how everybody just was operating almost in their own little silo. Like, what was happening here, people didn't know what was going on there. And it was just this, but yet it all worked in this thing we called America in the 90s. And so it's just, it was, again, the final chapter to the book was like, I've never finished a book and where I was just like, man,
good close.
That is just a really good. Yeah, he said the towers fell and the 90s did with them.
That was great. Randomly, I went to New York last month.
Yeah,
and I stayed right by the 9/11 memorial.
Yeah,
and I walked down, and it's
cool.
You've seen it?
I've been there.
What it is?
Yeah,
you've been there.
Yeah,
yeah. It's the fountains that goes down.
Yeah,
and one tower now. So I didn't know if that's. I mean, I assume it's symbolic that they kept one and they didn't want to build two. So they have one.
Yep.
But
that's
like,
what I assume.
I just
going there and literally being there. It is. I mean, because I think you like that moment. A moment nobody can I mean, that's
That's
an
the
all,
moment.
that was.
In our lifetime, that's the moment. It is.
And the other thing was Columbine. Columbine was a huge, I remember almost being affected just as much by Columbine as I was 9/11 at the time, because, you know, I mean, it was a school shooting. You go to school. There was an abstract nature to 9/11 that was hard. I mean, I remember being at Southeastern. We had to go I remember meeting with a counselor.
Yeah.
And the way they tried to explain terrorism was just it was so abstract.
Yeah, we're going.
And you're like, what?
I think that was the loss of innocence in our country. Like, for the kids that grew up in the 90s, right? Like, you know, like we went through middle school, high school in the 90s, and you just didn't have to worry about almost anything. And then 9/11 happens and you kind of go, oh,
right.
You know what I mean? It was a big change. Columbine was a little bit, I mean,
Columbine was a big deal for me, at least.
We played at Columbine High School 2 years after. And I remember feeling like nervous about being there. I remember walking in, there was a kid that had a fake gun. I think it was more like some sort of like symbolic thing going on. And but I remember being like it was like, it felt eerie to be in that building at that time. It was like, it was a surreal thing.
I went to one of the back doors that they had on the TV coverage of a lot of the kids running out of it. I went to that door, and I remember like literally like the hair stood up on my arm, and I was just like, "Ooh, man!" And I vividly remember. So this may have been the year before you and I went there. When I went with Southeast, like the first play of the game, I stole it from we played Columbine High School at Columbine. I stole it from Columbine's point. The first play of the game, like they win the jump ball. I pick him up at half court. I rip him. And I go get a layup, and I remember like I felt bad.
Yeah, you're like,
I literally wanted to be like, I'm sorry.
It was a crazy moment in time. Like, I couldn't believe we were there. I couldn't believe they had the tournament there.
Yes, it was like, is this a good idea?
I remember being like, we're going to Columbine. Like,
yes.
When you said the word Columbine,
it was
in 1999, 2000. It was like,
yes,
it might as well. It was like saying like we're going to Twin Towers. Like, it felt that scary almost.
What steroid era baseball. He wrote a little bit about that.
Brady Anderson. To me, Brady Anderson was the standout because
his numbers.
I think if I remember right, they said he had hit 18 home runs was his
that sounds right
season high. In the next year, he hit 50.
Yeah.
And it's the whole like, he works out. It's really working out hard. Yeah. And you just start thinking about that. You just start thinking about how hard it is to hit a baseball. You start thinking about how hard it is to just play that sport at a high level. And to go from 18 to 50 is unthinkable.
It's an unfathomable jump.
It's almost equivalent of like Barry Sanders had 1,500 yards. Now he had 3,500.
Right, you go.
Like, it's not just double. It's like, it's such a number that you just go, wait a minute. Like,
but do you remember? See, what's hard about it is like, and what's hard is I was into the home run race. Everybody was into it.
We were into it.
And I'm especially, I have a really, really jaded way of viewing this because my dad and I were in St. Louis when McGuire hit his 61st and 62nd home run. I was there. It's one of my all-time favorite memories, especially with my dad, and all-time favorite sports memories. So it's like, it's hard for me to then put on my glasses and view that memory negatively. But do you remember? Now, granted, we were younger, but was there any cynicism about it at the time?
Not as much. Here's to me, I think people rationalize it with, like it's the modern era and people learned how to work out better. And I think most people writing about it and watching it didn't want to believe. They didn't want to believe that these guys are cheating because they're enjoying what's happening, right? You that's the part that I think we subconsciously
just turned a blind eye into in the night. Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't remember what I thought at the time. I just remember I was really into it.
Oh, I mean, Nick,
And
Big Mac and Sosa, like, to me, it's like Brady Anderson hitting 50 home runs is worse than what they did on.
Right.
I don't know. I know what you're saying. They gave us a moment, right? I think the Barry Bonds gets tarnishes it, not because he did anything different than Mac or Sosa, but Mac and Sosa gave us that little moment. They gave us the back and forth.
Right.
Baseball was in a bad spot.
Yeah.
The strike, that did a really bad thing for baseball. And they helped bring it back. The problem is like, I mean, Bonds, like I said, he did nothing worse than those guys. It was just, he didn't uplift everybody with in the way that the rivalry that Mac and Big Mac and Sosa did. So it's all, it just sucks that baseball turned the blind eye. They did too. So they needed to in 92, 3, 4. Brady Anderson hits 50. Everybody's getting tested. Yeah. That's to me, you don't go on strike.
Right.
You test everybody and say, we'll find a way to not strike and get through this. And baseball, I would love to see what happened to baseball. If they handled the strike in the steroid era better, because Nick, baseball is a second-class citizen right now.
Well, and that's the thing, because they even talked about MJ and playing baseball and how baseball was still viewed, the sport that was viewed as different at that time. And yeah, because even when you contrast it now with Aaron Judge and his home run race.
Is he still in 61?
I think so.
I couldn't believe how little attention he got where he was. And then all of a sudden I hear he hit 61 and I go, I was blown away. It hasn't been covered more until he hit 61.
Right. No, but it's wild to compare the coverage and the fervent nature of how people are consuming Judge versus like McGuire and Sosa was the biggest deal. It was huge.
The summer of 98, because it was 98, right?
Yeah, I thought
so.
The
summer of 98. I just remember it was every day you were checking to see if they did. And
you were
every
checking
day
SportsCenter, you were checking the paper.
They were cutting in their at-bats and shows. And
all I know is awesome. My mom, when I would get home from my mom would update me. She was like, Sosa hit another one. She would always call him Solsa. She goes, Solsa hit another one. I'm like, Sosa, Mom. It's Sosa. But she would tell, like, yeah. And it's a.
And just think about when Mac hit it and like Sammy came in and it was like genuine. Like those guys genuinely appreciate each other. And you like that goes a long way.
Yes.
They were good guys to each other. They were the right guys for the moment.
It was St. Louis and Chicago. It was Cardinals in the cut. It was two iconic, Major League Baseball
teams. It was it was perfect in a way. It's just too bad that we have to look back and be tarnished because it was such an amazing moment.
Yeah. Anything else with the book?
Nope. I'm glad we both read it.
I know.
It's
our a great
era.
book, man.
It's our era too. That's where, because it's funny. I listened to Klosterman on Simmons years ago, and he was talking about David Halberstram's the 50s. Yep. And I read that book and absolutely loved it because Klosterman was a big fan of it. And then like 3 years later, he did his version of it. Yeah. So I was waiting for this for a long time.
Well, all I know is you and I are Klosterman fans. And when I heard he was doing this book, I got it basically the first day it came out and couldn't put it down.
Oh, man.
And it is anybody, like a lot of listeners are, their children or people of the 90s. Highly recommend checking out that book.
Agreed.
We went almost 2 hours. People got things they got to go do. We may not have things we have to go do, but people have things that.
Let's be real. Let's be real. Make some time, people. This is worth it.
This is worth your time. Okay, I love it. Well, this is fun.
Hey, if you come this far, maybe you're willing to come a little farther. That's the old Shawshank line.
I like it. Okay, well, recap pod. Rutgers. We'll have to DVR it because we're at a wedding on Friday, but we'll watch it. We'll recap it. We'll get there. Okay.
Here she comes down, say money. Hey.